You guys, thank you for joining us. We got Alfred Blanco, the Alfredo, excuse me, the man, the myth, the on Reddit. That's one of the best YouTube channel. This guy has the best takes, the smartest opinions. He's with one of the best groups, and he puts out a lot of good content on the historical aspect of the art. And Alfredo, I'm really happy to have you with me, and let's have a great talk.
Oh, it's very kind. It's very kind. I don't. I'm not actually pursuing an online career or presence in any way. It's just a hobby I started during COVID. So it's nice that it's reached some people. That makes me really happy.
Yeah. Oh, dude, you're. So I think you're the one that created that subreddit, though, the Tomiki subreddit.
Yeah, I did.
That's one of the best ones. I'm literally banned from the Aikido subreddit.
Oh, what happened?
They said I was being sexist, which wasn't true. Which wasn't true at all. There was a guy. I think his name's Aiki-Luka. He used that moniker, and I think So he was doing some sparring, and he was using Aikido techniques, and he was saying, "Oh, I took down a world champion in Jujutsu with the Aikido technique, but it was a woman."
Okay.
That he did it to, and I just couldn't help it. I said on the subreddit, I said, has anyone noticed that was a woman that he took down?
I can see.
Because everyone was like, oh, he took down a world champion and stuff. Like, they just kept saying world champion. And I'm like, did no one bother to notice that it was a woman and not a man?
Yeah. Well, I would say he's actually one of my... There's a couple people I watch. I do watch Aiki-Luka, Martial Geeks. These, for me, they're all doing... they're all after my own heart of like trying to reunify Jujutsu. So
yes,
yeah,
me too. Me too.
And you,
thank you, brother. Me too. It just the title of the thing. It just seems so clickbaity. And I'm not against what he's doing at all. I think he's doing great stuff. I just thought like no one in this line of thought has brought this up once, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Oh, just in that list, if I could just plug, Jaime loves martial arts also. In that
list.
Is he
the best?
Yeah.
He's best in the world right there.
Yeah. He's actually the current United States silver medalist in Tomiki. He's got the silver medal in the Tomiki Nationals. And he, on top of having a BJJ school. Which is actually not far from me. I visited him a few times.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, send him my blessings. We communicated a couple times. I mean, he's just the best. And by the way, that gold medalist from the Nationals, that guy is really impressive.
You know, Josh Ramey?
Josh Ramey. I really don't know much about him, but I mean, he's really fit. He's like his frame, his structure is just very, very good. Very good movement, like great movement, great powerful technique. I mean, that guy is just a specimen, man.
Yeah, I briefly sparred with him about 2 years ago. Just sort of playing. I'm past my prime, so to speak. But yeah, it was something else. He's quick.
Golly.
And it's so nice to see younger people. So that's good. And he's a real athlete. That's the benefit.
Yeah. Boy, you ain't kidding. He is, dude. And you know what? That's one of the things that I feel like.
If I had a baseball card, it would be like if there were baseball cards for our sport. Josh, Jaime, William Ball. There's a couple of names on that list. He's one of them.
Yeah, we got it back. Yeah, William Ball is incredible. I think he's getting a little bit older in years and maybe doesn't want to compete too much anymore.
Yeah, I would say. But some of his older videos are really impressive.
Yeah, for sure.
I would say one in particular was great because it really shows that range management that grapplers need. And he learned his range management this way, which is getting palm. If you keep threatening people with palm strikes in the face, you learn movement, you learn range management. And there's this great clip of him doing this. It's really subtle. He closes just just gets inside my eye, elicits an attack, just gets outside, and then close. You know, it's that. Everyone looked
Yeah.
at the end where he threw the guy, but the genius was
Yeah.
that range management, getting the attack, boom, coming just outside, boom, just inside, and that shows
Yeah.
you can learn a kind of a pugilistic aspect to jujitsu. It's here. We have that kind of thing
Yes.
without having to go outside.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the greatest thing about
Mhm.
Aikido that I think gets misunderstood is that we're doing real fighting, real grappling, but it has to be with the proper timing and from the proper distance. You want to blow, yeah, it's really specialized in Aikido. Give me 1 second. I want to change the something here in the background.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh shit! What am I doing? Pressing buttons? Okay. Yeah, I think we're still good here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's the thing, and I believe that Professor Tomiki had written articles about this sort of strategy about I think he said that these sort of techniques in Aikido had been around for a long time,
Yeah.
but there was not yeah, and he sometimes called it like outside judo, like the outside of sweeping and throwing distance.
I think his word was Hanara Judo.
Hanari,
Judo at a
Hanari judo.
distance or arms length
Yes.
judo, something like that.
Yeah, and I think that's really important for people to remember because when most of the time people think of judo, they think of like a very viable fighting system. And oftentimes when they think of Aikido, they don't realize that it is too. And so they think of more of the whimsical and spiritual aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
And they forget that these techniques are all very rational. They're based on
Yeah.
timing, matching of timing,
Yeah.
proper leverages, and stuff like that. And when people divorce themselves from that aspect of it, then it really tends to devolve into some sort of like a fake religion.
Yeah. Well, we do have. There was a letter that one of Tomiki's letters to a friend of his, Admiral, I forget, someone, where he expresses his doubts about Ueshiba's religion, and he says explicitly these two things should be separate.
Yeah,
And so a lot of people will go, don't get that there is a branch of Aikido that is basically devoid of metaphysics. It's
yeah,
a sport, and that's what we
yes,
do. There's no talk about. I mean, is it a good idea to control your response in a self-defense situation? Maybe we're used to laughing at that idea, but it's actually a good idea to think about that. And
right.
if it takes a Weishiba to get us to think about that, maybe that's useful. I always think of what Weishiba as maybe more the whys of martial arts is more than the hows. And you
Oh,
know, and maybe it's a good idea to at least think about that now and again. Keep in mind why are you doing this, and to keep it within proper bounds.
yes,
You know.
yes, exactly. Because if you talk about how to actually do it, you should be very much focused on Kuzushi,
Hmm.
Kake, and Kuzuri.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. For those that don't speak the language out there, it's taking the balance, positioning, and execution.
Yeah.
And yes, and the more that you keep that in mind for all of your techniques,
Yeah.
the more sound and scientific you're going to be.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. And that's the thing. I started kind of reconstructing a lot of the techniques when I returned to Aikido in about 2017 is when I returned,
Hmm.
and um, I started going back to some of the lessons I had learned from Isoyama Shihan back in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s,
Yeah.
and he would teach that way. He had a very mechanical technique that
Yeah.
was very, yeah, which is very robust and powerful.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you've seen him a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and he would teach Kazushi, Kake, and Kazuri.
Hmm.
He because he goes back to the Aiki Bujitsu days
Yeah.
and Aiki, yeah, and Aiki Jujitsu, and it's although he was very much concerned with teaching the basics of Aikikai, especially as taught by the leadership of the son of Yoshpa.
Mm.
However, he that didn't stop him, because some of that's very circular and flowing. However, that didn't stop him from insisting on these three basics,
Yeah,
and yeah, and how to make your technique work properly.
yeah.
You know.
You've done judo, I guess, I assume, or you have some.
Yes, yeah. I don't have an extensive judo background. I did judo at the San Fernando
Mhm.
Valley Judo here in the Los Angeles County for about a year and a half. But my first martial art after I started point karate, my first martial art was Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and
Mhm.
um, started that in 1994. Even the coaches were beginners back then. So it was like beginners teaching beginners, but it was cool because I remember I got an arm bar on my first day, and I was
Nice.
able to, yeah, because
Awesome.
I didn't have any confidence in point karate. I used to get tore up.
Mhm.
I couldn't do it. I mean, trust me, I had the spirit for it. I had the heart, but I
Yeah.
was not winning any fights with that. Let me tell you right now, dude. And I remember I got an armbar on my first day, and I was like, "Holy crap, this is crazy!"
Yeah.
And then yeah, so I did grappling for about 6 years before I started Aikido,
Mhm.
and and I was still doing the karate
And that's
stuff
the
too.
right order, by the way, in my opinion.
Exactly. Yeah,
Mhm.
either judo,
Or
freestyle
jujitsu.
wrestling, or
Yeah.
jujitsu. You want to do that one first. Yeah, bingo,
Yeah.
bingo, and yeah, and nowadays in the modern Aikido sphere, especially the Aikikai folks, a lot of them have been dabbling in a Gracie style, and it's like it's blowing their mind and stuff like that. And I commend them for doing it because
Yeah.
most people in Aikido have a very fragile ego, and they're just very
Yeah.
they don't want to lose at all. They don't want to get choked,
Yeah.
you know, or
I've
thrown like.
never practiced traditional. I think I watched one class for 15 minutes, so I can't really speak on it.
Yeah,
But in the online communities, I can identify. I recognize what you're talking about. I've sort
yeah,
they get attacked constantly. I guess it would eventually get to you. You know.
yeah. I know, and that's the thing. They just pretty much said like, oh, Aikido is not a martial art, and they just
Mhm.
said like it's just a movement practice and stuff. And so they go, okay, Gracie or Brazilian style, that's the martial art. That's the only one. It's just like,
Yeah.
no, that's not, and that's so false. I don't blame them for thinking that, but they're not. They haven't been taught how to do Aikido as a martial art.
Yeah.
But if you're in Tomiki style, you're learning it as an effective
Yeah.
martial art because it's proven you there's an actual competition that guys can go to. There's a Shiai, and you
Yeah.
can see Aikido techniques being done.
Yeah.
Kotegaeshi, Maetoshi, Aigami Ate,
Mm.
all Gedan Ate, all this Shomen Ate. I'm a big Shomen Ate, and Isayama Shihan was too. He loved
That's
Shomen Ate.
Shimonate is
Yeah,
a southpaw jab.
yeah,
The same,
yeah, it is.
except we typically fight southpaw from the get. So our southpaw is orthodox, but
Me too.
you know, and if
Yeah,
I recently found this video because I try to, I've always tried to dabble. I'm never going to have that saintly experience of deep diving, except for Tomiki, which I spent most time in. I
yeah,
like dabbling, probably like a lot like yourself.
sure.
I love when I see the same thing kind of rediscovered and what we can learn, frankly, because the truth is Tamiki is the only flaw I see with Tamiki is that it's a relatively small population. I
It
think there
is.
might be 10 to 15,000 practitioners worldwide, and we could use more. More people
Yeah,
means more testing, more rigor. Um, so I like to look at like what are the sports doing that have similar movements, like wrestling, like
yeah,
boxing, that will tell us look at the rigor they're bringing to this and that they had to bring to it because it's more popular because they have so much more competition, and
yeah.
so you see a nice southpaw jab and you go that's how a shomanate should look, or a Russian uh, wrist snap that
Yes.
might be a really good inspiration for um, hikiotosh, because it's essentially the same mechanics. So I like
Yeah.
to look at those things and make those parallels and go what can we learn from them.
Exactly. And that just proves the viability of these techniques, because those are being done on super high level competition.
Exactly.
International level competition, and it's working there. So just like, hell yeah, we got the right stuff. All we got to do is just train it the right way.
Yeah. I mean, if I
Yeah.
when I get my school, I guarantee you it'll look a lot more like a wrestling class than a Aikido class. A lot of drilling, a lot of my wrestling coach used to say you win the match while you're drilling, right?
Mm.
Your intensity of drilling is going to be whether you win or lose.
Okay, got it. So
And
it's in your spirit and your mind how you're training it.
yeah.
Oh, so you are planning on opening up a
Oh,
satellite
yeah.
school?
It's not if, it's just when. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
definitely moving in that direction, and going to start that possibly as my first career starts to wind down, and I'm getting there. So
Right. Yeah, I think you're about 52 years old or so.
little higher, little higher.
Little more. Bro, you're looking good. How old are you?
Uh, two
You
more,
don't,
not two.
you don't want to say, okay, 54. Okay, you don't want to say.
Yeah.
Bro, I'll tell you what, I was scared of 40. I did not want to turn 40. I
Mm-hmm.
remember pure dread. It just all of a sudden it just seemed like age just seemed all too real.
Rough.
Like that, you
Yeah,
know.
it's rough. It's rough, especially if you make this your identity as long as I have. But I'm trying to grow old gracefully now. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 surgery. 4 surgeries, and a fifth one probably coming from
Yeah.
all that life. But the doctor has told me that my heart is 20 years under my age, and that's because of this. I hope.
Hey, it's
So,
because of this, huh? It's
yeah,
not from the olive oil.
that too. I'm sure. Little of
'Cause
that.
that's what they always said, like that's the better alternative or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
That's what um oh, okay. So I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned that you started in 1982 in some martial art
Yes.
or wrestling, maybe, I'm not sure.
Oh. Okay. Well, I did karate. I did Wing Chun. Oh, I'm trying to figure which one was first, Wing Chun or karate. So in the 1970s, in the late 70s in New York, and into the 80s, Kung Fu was huge. I
Yeah.
cannot explain to you what the Kung Fu scene in New York was like. No description. It defies description. I
Right.
mean, there was this. Basically, people were trying to emulate what they saw in those Sunday morning Hong Kong cinema drive-ins, and down to the clothes and everything. And it was everywhere in the culture. And so you almost couldn't avoid it. If you were involved in martial arts at all, you were going to get some kung fu in there. And Wing Chun was the most popular one, with
Sure.
Bruce Lee popularizing it, of
Obviously.
course. But of course, it did get a New York flavor to it. So people
Yeah.
were tightening up
Or like
their
a
block,
boxer.
their range. They were doing a very, in my personal opinion. You ever heard of 52 blocks?
Yeah.
Oh, so my opinion, as a well placed observer, knowing a lot of people had come out of Rikers, bringing this stuff to me, 52 blocks is 100% based on Wing Chun, without question. I mean, you look at Pak Sao and Tan Sao, what they call skull and bones is a Bung Sao. It's almost
Oh,
one for one. The first 12 blocks are almost line up perfectly.
got it. Got it.
So it kind of got, remade for American frames and American New York needs. Then I started karate. I was doing Shotokan under Sensei Earl Bennett, who was a big name at the time. He still has several schools around New York, and he's a. Then I went to high school and I joined the wrestling team. So that dominates all your time. You can't do anything else. You could barely breathe.
What weight class?
Oh, I was very small. I think I went in at 119.
Yeah.
I was a skinny boy.
Yeah.
And then I got out. Oh geez, there was Taekwondo in there for a while. Basically, whatever I can get someone to teach me for free was a big one,
Yeah.
right? And I'd go, and
Yeah.
a friend of mine would teach me in his basement Taekwondo. I'd pester him. Then I had some money. I could start going to class, and I went to. This was at the height of Aikido's popularity before it kind of got changed. And I saw an Aikido's program at my college, and I went in, and I thought, oh, this is pretty interesting. Um, I already know how to grapple. I'm pretty good. Let me just try some of this, and I had a big
Sure.
head about it.
And karate,
And
you know, karate and kung fu as well.
and wrestling, and whatever. And no small credit to Eat More Projects, which I lived right outside of. So I had a lot of unfortunate opportunity to have to use a lot of this. So
Oh,
I
you had to
felt pretty
scrap.
confident. Didn't know
Yeah.
anything about it, but I had no idea about. I didn't realize how little I knew until I started. So this guy was this was my current sensei Watanabe, and he was a direct student of Kenji Tomiki, and he was very adamant that we learn judo alongside. Right, so
Yeah.
he kind of insisted that you took both.
Yeah.
And for him, it's not one style. It's one style. Excuse me, and that he would often say brown in one, black in the other, depending on your preference. And so I did.
Yeah.
Even when even in our class, in our Aikido class, he would make
Yeah.
us do ground fighting, or we would
Nice.
do
Very awesome.
the nine holds. By the time you are green belt in my class, in my Aikido class, you're already like a yellow belt in judo. And
Yeah.
maybe you were two or three behind, and further behind. So
So
we
was
were always improving.
some of it was being built in.
Yes, yeah, and because that's how
Like
he learned it.
okay, so that's good. So kind of which specific parts of judo were being built into the Aikido?
Um, More or less what's not already there, but some of so in our okay. So a little backstory. 1967, I think the JA was formed. I might be off a
Yeah.
few years there.
Yep.
1967.
I think
So
so.
he came to America in 1959. So this is when there was still just a group of judo students who were staying after and developing Aikido
Yeah.
with Kenji Tomiki. So there
Yeah.
were two, or I think there were only two schools. There was Nippon University and was two schools. There was Nippon and Waseda. So
Oh, did you say
Nippon was the
59?
huh?
Did you say 59 he came here?
He came here in '59. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Got it.
So he
Okay, yeah,
came
yeah.
here with
So
that
real
version,
early.
and that in '59 they had just kind of finished the 17. So it wasn't the 15 basic 15. They had just finished the 17, and some of Daisan was done, but it was still very judo centric. So
And
that's the
that's
version that we
Daisan no
teach here.
kata. That's the Koryu kata for Daisan. And you guys, anyone tuning in, if you don't know what Daisan means,
Oh yeah.
he's referring to the more of the classic, well-rounded Aikido as a whole martial art rather than just the direct competitive techniques, because there's a
Yeah.
lot more to Tomiki Aikido than just the competitive techniques, and that's where the Daisan no kata comes in, because it gives you like a more well-rounded picture of the martial art. You're dealing with grabs, collar grabs, and different strikes and stuff like that, and it kind of gives you the more classic flavor of Aikido as a whole martial art. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Um, yeah. So anyway, I got exposed to a really good, in my opinion, a really good flavor of Aikido almost accidentally and by pure luck. And
Yeah,
then started doing judo and realized that my wrestling was inadequate to judo. Great scramble, great,
yeah.
be able to move around people, but I couldn't finish them. Right, I had no chokes, had
Oh, yeah.
no, arm bars, because all that's obviously illegal in wrestling.
Right.
So I had to basically start again and learn all that. Um, then since then, I went back to karate for a while. My brother is a fourth dan in Shukokai, which,
Oh,
in case you're wondering, Kyokushinkai is not the only full contact karate. There's quite a few out there. Shukokai, and in this case, Kimura Shukokai. So that was started by Shigeru Kimura, who came to the United States, was teaching out in New Jersey, and I got to meet him. So I've been very, very fortunate, and I've had some great teachers. So and then
yeah.
I figured, all the great talents in BJJ, and if you're serious about martial arts, you got to have you got to put a year or two in that in. So I did that, and
Oh,
I wasn't so strict, and I wasn't pursuing belts. I just would go to whatever school was closest to me at the
strange.
time and pay mat
Yeah,
fee, and I did that for
yeah.
about 2 years.
Oh, okay. But specifically, when you mentioned the judo with Aikido,
Yeah,
are you referring to like collar and sleeve, learning to like lift pull,
yeah.
ogoshi, osoto, like kosotogari, what are we talking?
So for instance, in my school, you learn the nine holds in yellow
Okay,
belt. It's like
of the Newa.
officially part of our curriculum, which is
Love
not
that.
Tamiki. It's not Shotokan. It's not TAA. It's what we do.
I
Then
love
we
that, and
go
I'm
in and
proud about
we'll
that.
do a handful of throws. We do Uchikomi occasionally. We
Yeah.
do circle fighting, which is kind of like our own little version of sumo. So a lot of
Oh,
lifting, grabbing, pushing.
yeah.
And I think sumo and aikido have a lot more in common too. That's
Me
another
too.
story.
Me too. You
Um,
know what? I think that's so cool how you're bringing in the Kazuri Kesagatami, like all the nine basic Newaza holds, and
yes,
the kind of the transition that you do. You know, you kind of run the circle around and stuff like that.
yes,
And that's actually something that was one of the earlier thoughts I had in my mind about how to like make people's Aikido more robust. I
yeah.
thought, well, maybe I'll put the kind of the basic Newaza in there.
Hmm.
And you know what? I end up going that direction personally, but I think that is a good I think that is a really great way to do it. And it just, when people feel about the veracity of the pinning techniques, you know, the
Hmm.
body on body, osekomi,
Hmm.
it gives them a real sense of confidence because, and it gives them a chance to do live sparring, right?
Yeah,
Because they're focused on osekomi, but it's very low to the ground, and it's very wrestling centric, and the people get a lot of confidence from that, you know, because they go, no, I can hold you down, but you can't hold me down, and that just clicks in people's mind, and it gives them so much confidence.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's really good. Um, I'm very concerned with the future. The reason I'm concerned with the future of Aikido, and I spend all this time, and I've spent all this time trying to save it, is I really do think it's valuable, and I don't want it to get lost. You know, in the mix of the no touch Aikido, and I want to make sure people understand that this exists, and it's valuable because, in my opinion, and this would be like a lot of Aikido talks start with, it's really meant for disarming. It's meant for the samurai. There's a lot of excuses. You know,
Yes.
so I'm going to make a
Because no
bold
one
claim.
has swords. Hey, no one's carrying a
No,
sword, so
exactly.
they can just say that, you
Yeah.
know.
So
Uh,
yeah. So my bold claim, and the hill I'll die on, is that judo plus a little Tomiki Aikido or vice versa, and in a pinch, I would say BJJ and sumo. Between
yeah,
those two combinations, you get the full range of classical jiu-jitsu. You get joint techniques, you get throws, you get grappling, and you get a temi.
yeah.
And you get it in a way that is uh, more fitting to civilian security and law enforcement use. Right? There's
Yes,
one thing in the ring,
exactly.
it's great, it's amazing, MMA, I love it, but it may not necessarily be called for in a self-defense situation, and it's not even necessary. It's a false dichotomy to think that that it's one or the other. You can in fact get to a place where you can defend yourself in a controlled way with these four
Yeah,
realms to one
yeah,
degree or another, one of them mastered and the other three sort of comfortable. you
yeah,
know
exactly, exactly. And all of those are good approaches. You know, like the sumo, or even just like even just Aikido with the focus on the seven. Is it 17 or 19 now? 17
17.
basics. Yeah, with the focus on the 17 basics and Randori, even if you were mostly focused on that, you would still have a very good um, self-defense martial art that would be extremely viable.
Oh
You
yeah,
know, yeah,
100%. If
but
you
it's
don't need much more than judo, to be completely
yeah,
honest. All
exactly.
that judo needs is a threat to the face, which you get
Yeah,
from a temi.
Shomanate.
Dominante.
Hmm.
If you have that threat
Yeah,
to the face, you start learning this, because I'll tell you, when we do a lot of cross training and
yeah,
in my school, so a lot of the first thing the judo guys come and do is they go, hey, and they walk their face right into you
right. With their hands up
with the
like
hands
this,
up.
so you're getting pop, 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 pop
Yeah,
with
so
the
that's what I'll do.
koshin.
I'll just keep doing this to them
Uh-huh.
until they learn to do this. And then I go, get your
Yeah,
hands up, boom, get your hands up, boom.
yeah,
And then you'll see they'll start to learn to move. And,
yeah,
implicitly through negative reinforcement, if that's what it takes.
yeah.
Um, so that's how we bring it to them, and vice versa. Like, so when a lot of the Tamiki guys take their first judo class, they're sitting ducks because their feet are too close together, or whatever they're doing wrong,
Um,
and then they get swept, like, very easily. So you start to learn how to stand in one, and you start to learn how to move your head in the other.
you know what? Ashiwaza foot
Mhm.
sweeps.
Yeah.
That to me is the technique that is most foreign from Aikido. That seems like the most That's the one that like could fit in very well potentially, but it just for the Aikido person, the Aikidoka, it seems so different. It just seems so foreign.
Yeah.
Like if you did like an Ogoshi, that would feel good to an Aikidoka. Like they could connect with that. But having one foot planted and sweeping, lifting, pulling, et cetera, with the other, that is like such a foreign concept to most Aikido people.
Yeah.
Some of it actually did get passed down in the Isayama line because he does. Yes, he does very limited Ashiwaza. What he does is he gets it from in our school we call it the Sonkyo position, although like a Kote Hineri. And so while he's pulling Kote Hineri, he actually hits Ashiwaza like this.
Yeah.
So the guy is getting completely broken, shattered, and then flipped on his back at the same time. It's super devastating, you know. And then also from like defenses from kicks, he does a little bit of Ashiwaza from there. But as far as like lifting, pulling, and then doing Ashiwaza, Kosotogari, stuff like that, that's very foreign to Aikido people in my experience.
Well, I think like Iriminagi is a Sotogari.
Yeah,
right?
there's a lot to it.
It's the clothesline.
It's just the timing. You got to match the timing of the strike and stuff like that.
There's a great video that I think the SAF put out about 4 or 5 years ago of lectures given by Kenji Tomiki, and it's his video of him. I guess they found somewhere, and he talks about single point throws. So in judo, you have two. I think two. There's sumiotosh and ukiotosh. And what he means by single point throw is you're touching the person in one place.
Yeah.
Whereas with Osotogari, you've got two points of pressure and the fulcrum. So you're hitting the top and you're sweeping out the bottom, and the fulcrum is your hip.
Okay, right? Got it.
So with ukiotosh, like a judo ukiotosh, the fulcrum is that person's center of gravity, also known as the Mongolian throw.
Yeah, because the thrower drops.
Yeah, so you just go this, and what's preventing that person's hips from keeping under them is their own center of gravity. And if you've timed it correctly, that center of gravity is maybe moving back or moving up, and you can take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Tomiki seemed to be concentrating on that. So that was like, in the way that BJJ deep dives Newaza, Tomiki was deep diving, in his words, single point throws.
Interesting. You know what?
You'll see a lot of that. But does a second point help? Like, so if I were doing shomenate properly done, it's a single point throw. You're coming at me or you're rising, and I'm able to meet that rise and take you off the feet.
Yeah.
But if I could throw in an ankle pick, or a knee pick while I'm doing that, all the better.
It's still shomenate, but you're putting a little brace on the side there.
Yeah.
And then Yeah.
But technically, it is technically a single point throw. But in competition, you'll see a lot of either small of the back or back of the knee or ankle.
The thing about shomenate, though, if you do it as a single point throw, you have to really thrust through the person, and it tends to be extremely powerful. Yeah. And there's a concern about your partner's safety. And I believe, cut me off if I'm wrong, but I believe even in the rules of Shiai, there's notions of protecting the competitor that you're going against. You can't just go out there and then try any wild ass fucking move. Excuse my language. You actually have to take their safety in consideration too, even though it's a Shiai.
I think the rules for Atemi, actually, I just remembered. So there was another school that opened near, and I was doing Muay Thai for a while.
Yeah.
And teep. Shomenate, so if it's not like, so the difference between a front kick and a teep is I'm kind of touching and pushing as opposed to shocking the body with a kick.
Okay.
So with shomenate, with all the Atemi, it's supposed to be more like a teep, if that's the language where you're touching and then pushing through. Yeah. So that it's not just that shock. Jarring. And I think you will get a penalty if they see too much of that.
Yeah. Which self-defense wise, you're just going to blast straight through, But
But
I did want.
having been on the receiving end of a perfectly legal shomenate, they're not fun. Yeah.
No, they're not.
You don't want that either.
Yeah, I wanted to touch though on the single point throws and the is it Uki Waza or Uki Otoshi?
Uki
Uki
Waza
Waza.
is the category.
Yeah.
The corollary throws in judo would be uki otosh or maybe sumi otosh, corner drop,
Right. Okay.
which
So
shares its name with one of the Uki Waza throws in Tomiki Aikido, which is also the second one is also called sumi otosh, but it's done
right,
slightly differently.
of
One is
course.
sleeve
But
lapel, one is wrist.
yeah, and I wanted to get back to the Kodokan version though.
Yeah.
That throw actually I feel is a brilliant throw, and it's one of the ones of the very classic jujutsu and judo ones that I include here
Oh,
for my students, and I'm pretty crafty at it too. I can get guys
oh yeah.
pretty good with it.
Well,
Yeah,
tell
I
me,
mean
what's your setup? How do you do it? Are you
uh,
give me some trade secrets?
sure. I just a lot of times I go right from wrist control because I use the wrist control to kind of go into uh maybe like a udegarami or something like that. But
Mm-hmm.
so I use a wrist control and then a lapel, and I push them that way, and then I drop, because they're trying to come back in.
Mm-hmm.
Bam! I drop and then send them over. You know,
Nice.
just like that. Um, yeah, and I used to be a Sumi Otoshi guy too, but I felt like a lot of people. It's like a very big projectile throw. Like you got to have a good roll for
Mm-hmm.
that one, And it just that one seemed to really kind of scare the shit out of people.
Oh,
So
nice.
I kind of stopped doing that one.
Okay.
But I mean, again, most of my guys are like senior citizens, and they don't necessarily want to be thrown way up in the air and then roll like that. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. But they get a kick out of the sparring. Now I'll tell you that right now. Um, I'm teaching senior citizens how to spar.
Okay.
It's kind of a mishmash of uh, of wrestling, Aikido,
Mm-hmm.
sumo-esque type deals. So there's slapping little small hits, nothing powerful. We do like small hits, pushing, pulling, uh, try to focus on the basics. Arm pinning techniques. Get to the side, get a kotehineri, riminagi, um, or this way. I forgot the Tomiki name, but we call it kokyonage. But it's like
Um, Gyakumayate. So palm
yeah,
like to
gyaku.
the
Yes,
forehead or
gyaku.
high.
Yes, gyaku. Exactly, and that's another thing about Tomiki is the nomenclature, the
Yeah.
naming, because gyaku literally means opposite. So if you're saying gyaku ate, it means that you're opposite the guy. I got my right side forward. He's gonna have left side forward.
Yeah.
It's like yeah, it's an opposite. It's an opposite there. Like the naming is perfect. Um, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think that really it sounds dumb, but the naming really was part of the genius. Because
yeah.
if you name something correctly, it tells you a lot about it. And it's one case in which I would say Tomiki is very different from judo. Right? Judo's naming convention is very granular because it had to be, because they're saying what you're doing as opposed to what's happening. So if I were going to
Right.
go Osoto Gary or Osoto Otosh,
Yeah.
in Tomiki's naming convention, those two would be the same easily. Because and so he's saying reverse wrist or twist wrist. It's not saying thumb back of hand push.
Right.
He's saying what's happening, which means any way you make it happen is still Kotegaeshi or whatever.
True.
So if I could do a reverse Kotegaeshi, with a cross hand, or I can do it from
Yeah.
underneath, or I can do it while I'm grappling,
Yeah.
it's all Kotegaeshi because it's saying what's happening.
Because it literally translates to um, wrist reversal or like minor wrist reversal.
Yes.
Because you're reversing where the hand would naturally be.
Yeah. So however you make that happen is if you can basically get that hand reversed this way against itself, that's a Kotegaeshi.
Yeah.
And I think I read somewhere there's 2,000 plus techniques in the 17.
Really?
Yeah, and
Like
you know,
variations? Or,
that'll be another one of my missions. I'm gonna try to find out. I'm up to like 60. I'm up to like 160. You
yeah.
know, so I'm a little shy of 2,000.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't understand how people came up with this 2-3,000 thing. I don't see it.
yeah. I don't
You
know.
know.
It's in a book. I'm working on it.
Hmm.
He mentions it at some point. He mentioned it to either one of the two current heads. I forget who in one of their books. I don't forget.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of the, you know, and if you name it right, then expanding it, modifying it, you know, not that the judo, not to make light of what Kano gave us with the judo vocabulary, because you can just start agglutinatively adding words together and you can come up with new techniques and automatically have its name because of the how structured that is. You know, if I were to do a side something, I just add yoko to it. Right now I know I'm going to the side or whatever, right?
Yeah,
Or um, so you know, it's brilliant in its own way.
it is.
So how did
Yeah.
can I
Okay.
ask you how you got to where you are now?
Oh yeah.
Bringing these things together.
Um. Yeah. Well, a kind of a funny thing was that I was out of all martial arts for about 4 years, with a
Hmm.
couple brief classes here and there. But I was in this really strange marriage. It was very unhealthy and not on my part. It was
I hear these things
yeah.
happen.
So anyway, I couldn't train. I had to take her to Home Goods, 3 times a week. Go do shopping.
Okay. Okay.
Anyhow, so and then eventually that I escaped that marriage. I fled for my life,
Hmm.
um, and I when I restarted training, I just went back to the Brazilian school. Actually, first I went to the Kodokan school, and then the Brazilian school, and then I did that for about 4 years, just to kind of get the modern because they changed the modern stuff was different. It was more like De La Hiva guard and different types of guard that we didn't used to play in the 90s. And
Hmm.
it was everything was closed guard for me back in the early days. But anyway, um, and I did that for about 4 years, and then I started working out at home, and I had this sparring partner that was a pit bull. Okay, that was my only training partner. So me and the pit bull would do mock fights, and so I had to. I was that was the only thing I had. I had that. I had some kettlebells. I had a bench press and a um, like about a 15-pound iron bar that I would use as my Joe, and I would
Hmm.
work out with that, and I was hitting weird angles and stuff like that, and that and the
That was
dog.
impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, that and the dog was my training partner. I'd be doing Waza, rolling around, sweeping the dog and stuff like that. And it gave me a chance to work on my Aikido because the dog would lunge in from a distance, and I was doing like parrying, going to the side and stuff like that. And I know that seems so ridiculous, but literally, literally training with that dog, it gave me this idea about using my Aikido like in unconventional ways.
Hmm.
And so when I resumed here at the Aikido school, um, I would I just said, you know what? I said, let me grab one of these young guys in high school, and I said, let me I'll start get because I started giving them drills. I started breaking down components of say like hand fighting and just kind of like mock drills that were not necessarily sparring all out, but it was little components, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah, that are alive, and so it started with that, and then there was one guy in particular that was very receptive to my instruction and stuff like that. So he's on some of my videos. His name is Tej. I call him the guardian of the Taj Mahal. You know, his parents are from over there and stuff like that. So, Dej, if you're watching, brother, you're the best. Hope to see you soon. Come back from college. He's in university now. He's doing great. So anyway, we just started. He was the one that really grasped onto it first. I had some other guys that were trying it, but they would wig out, and their ego would mess with them, you know. Um, but so that's the thing. You got to take your ego out of it, and then try, because the classic Aikido thing is like there's one Tori and there's one Uki, and people only want to be the Tori. They don't want to like accept losing. You got to be able to go with the flow, and you're still staying harmonious. You got to be able to go with the flow, and you can't wig out.
I mean, the
You
same is
know,
true with any judo. Certainly,
yeah.
good uke should work with you occasionally and fall
Yeah.
well, right?
Yes. No, that's true. That's true. I just seen it. I seen it more in Aikido with Aikido people. They just
Mhm.
their ego it's just out of control. You
Yeah.
know. Then they wig out, try to go all hard and stuff. That's what I found is if the student is already like in the black belt ranks, it's too late for them to start learning how to spar. They'll never get it. They'll never get it. If I can get a guy at like 6 months in, something like that, that's like blue belt or whatever.
Yeah.
That's like a good time to start doing it. And I give him little pieces and little drills that are alive, and it kind of like I'll have them just to, like work on their defense. I'll say any hit that comes at you, you just work on your defense, try to get to my side, stuff like that, little drills like that, and then that gives them a little confidence, and they get really into that. So
Mhm.
yeah, and I guess I'm still creating it. I feel like I'm still trying to develop like what pieces of wrestling and what pieces of judo jitsu are highly congruent. So we're always
Oh,
experimenting with it.
sounds really interesting. I want to we should stay in touch. We want to keep
Yeah.
talking with you about this.
Okay.
Not necessarily on camera, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I had a
it's
question too.
interesting.
So, are you guys teaching? Is your school like out of the university, or where's your dojo?
Right now, well, Sensei Watanabe, sadly he retired, so
Yeah,
we just teach out of the university program now,
that's
and
good.
we also occasionally meet at a local BJJ school that's in not too far. But right
Oh,
now,
okay.
it's an official college course, and
Yeah,
that's how we're teaching.
that's
And we
good.
meet 2 days a week, and that's not terrible.
Yeah.
But
And so you have like some long-term people, and then you get like
oh,
fresh students from the university coming in.
pretty much,
Yeah.
yeah. And this year we got a bumper crop. I was very excited. You know, um, I don't know. It's good. I think there's a future. For a while, I was very pessimistic, but I
Yeah.
think there is a future. I'm seeing Bob King, who teaches out of Ohio. I think he was the head technical instructor for the TAA
Mm.
for some time until he retired. And when we had spoken last, he hadn't had a new student in a while. And now he's posting a bunch of new kids. So that's good. I think maybe we're seeing. Hopefully, we're seeing a renaissance. You know.
Yeah, but I gotta say, I haven't had a I've been trying to meet people and bring them in, and it's been difficult
Mm.
to get new students right now. Like the name Aikido, they're just people are scared about that name. They go, "Oh, it's not jujitsu or whatever," and I go, "No, it actually is."
It is jujitsu.
I go, "Yeah, it
A
is
good, a
jujitsu."
good chunk of it you're missing if you're not
Yeah,
doing this. And
yeah,
I would
exactly.
say if you're not doing it with resistance, then I hate to be, mean, but you're not doing it. If you're not
Yeah,
doing it with
exactly.
resistance, you're pretending to do it. You need to
Yeah.
do it with some kind of resistance.
Exactly. And even if it's just the static techniques, even if it's just the basic techniques,
Hmm.
you want active and proper resistance.
Yeah.
Even if you're just doing basics, you want them to resist and them to keep connection. That's that is another thing is teaching people how to drill the techniques. That's another thing that I've had a hard time doing with like the older, like the holdovers from the old dojo. They just
Yeah.
want to throw. They don't really care like what the uke is doing. They just want to whack the shit out of them. Just throw them. And I go, no, like there's more we can do. If you use proper resistance in the drills, you're gonna have a way better feel for how the technique is supposed to be done. And then of course, then you're gonna start going with the live elements, you know, the you know, Randori elements and stuff like that. And Randori in the true sense of the word, like Tomiki Aikido and Judo, real Randori. Not the fake Randori that the Aikikai does, which is 17 dudes start darting at you, and then you wave your arm like this, and then they go flying. Not the fake Aikikai Randori. Yeah, I'll comment for you, brother, because I'm loosely associated with them. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit silly. Yeah, I mean, I think that you're missing if you're not. So one of the, I don't know if this is necessarily a good thing, but if you had asked most BJJ, at least online, you know, wrist locks didn't work. Now, then they started going, oh, they work, and now you see wrist locks everywhere in BJJ. Now they love it. Now they invented it, right? So there's the Perez wrist lock, and there's all these.
Yeah.
And I go, well, you mean Kotegaeshi, or you like these things existed, you know?
Yeah.
Here's my one thing: if you're throwing, you need very special ukemi to do small joint locks, and they're just jumping the gun. And I know that I know the culture. Yeah, I know the culture in BJJ, and it makes sense on some level. Is they don't do warm ups. You're not paying for warm ups. You want to go to the gym, you go to the gym. You're paying for classes. I get that. That's good reasoning. If that's the case, then do your stretches on your own. Do something. Do Aikido push-ups. Do your wrist conditioning, because you're not going. You don't want the first time you had your wrist twisted by a newly minted brown belt who just saw it on YouTube. You know, you got it. You can and should strengthen your wrists by doing your conditioning. If you're gonna use them at all, hey, please. But with that said, yeah, it's a different ukemi, and you have different limitations there with a small joint. I would also say if you're under 15, don't even try. Don't do, because your bone growth plates have not sealed, and if you break a bone growth plate, you can create abnormalities. One arm could be longer than the other. They might not grow straight. All sorts of weird stuff happens if you break a bone growth plate. So nothing under 16, and do your conditioning, please. But with that said, you know, Tomiki Aikido is such a big piece of jujitsu that you're missing if you're not doing it, because you know you don't want to do quote unquote Aikido. And I would say the same if you're doing Aikido only and you've never rolled and you've never done any joint, you know, leg locks or never did an AWOD. Yeah, you're missing a big chunk too.
Headlocks, body clinching, stuff like that. It's more wrestling centric. Yeah, you got to do some of that. Yeah. God, there was something you touched on. Oh, about how they've adopted wrist locks in BJJ.
Yes.
I personally believe that the next great revolution in that competitive arena and BJJ in general is something that is so foreign to them, and that is the concept of the arm pin, Ude Usei Waza.
Ooh, interesting.
Like the type you would find in the kata.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I believe that can be used, and I do practice it. I use some of these things while passing the guard of BJJ. Like anytime you go to pass the guard in BJJ, they don't want you to pass, right? Like obviously you have a line of defense, which is your legs, okay?
Yeah.
But there's another line of defense, which is your arm.
Mm-hmm. Okay? So now this is what you're doing. Oh, bingo. I saw it.
Yeah. Bingo. Now everyone knows that if they get mounted, right, they're not allowed to stick their arms up. That's that's ingrained from day one.
Mm-hmm.
But while their guard is being passed, what do? They do this. Right. So bam, right there, I'm hitting Kota Hinari, Kota Mawashi, Ikkyo, what's known as Ikkyo. I'll do it a mote, or I'll cut to the back.
What does that translate to? I don't know those names.
The Ikkyo?
Oshitaoshi.
Matoshi.
Oh, okay.
Am I saying?
Mayotoshi?
Yeah, Mayatoshi, that one.
Okay.
That's like that, but in the Aikikai line, they don't project the guy, they try to bring him down to the pin.
Okay.
Okay.
I see.
Yeah, there's that, and then there's what's known as the Gokyo, which is like hands are inverted, one is up, one is down, but it's on the elbow and wrist joint.
Yeah.
So there's that one. That one's actually easier to learn because you have opposable grip, so you can feel yourself grinding on their joint. The harder one to learn is when they're both over the top, and that's the one that they teach first. That's why it's called Ikkyo. Like each knee, so number one, and that's actually hard. It's harder to learn how to exert your power on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I feel that those techniques are so viable and so misunderstood, and they're perfect for self-defense, and they absolutely could be used in a competitive arena, like grappling or wrestling. So yeah, I think it's going to happen. It hasn't been shown yet, but I believe that it will happen. And
I
I mean,
saw a few videos of someone, a BJJ trying to test an arm pin, and then the uke, whoever it was, just rolls over.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, if you're not doing it right,
Yeah.
then they can just roll over and stick their head under. But you're not. If you do it right, there's no space to put your head under.
Yeah, exactly. And while they're trying to roll, I mean, it's going to be disintegrating their connective tissue and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I mean, I do feel like Aikido has a bright future, but there's gatekeepers that are trying to say that it can only be done one way, and I deal with that in my association. I got in trouble with people out of our kind of like in our leadership within our group, within the like Isoyama group.
Yeah.
They took exception to my videos. They didn't like that I was using this word jujitsu. And I also, at a certain point in time, I had an affiliation with the Jiu-Jitsu Global Federation, which is Hickson Gracie's federation. Because I was really inspired by him, and they took exception to that. And then they called my master, and they got them all. My master's is. By the way, just to be frank, I'm a little bit emotional because my teacher, my master, James L Paulson, recently passed away.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry to hear that.
yeah, me too, brother. And I loved him, and he was the greatest guy and my mentor. But he was retired. He's living in Florida. Got cancer and stuff. And I got these freaking guys out of Japan calling my master, complaining about me, and he's freaking sick, and he's all worried like what I'm doing to the dojo and all this stuff. And I got such a negative taste in my mouth from these people that are causing angst and causing angst and concern to my master about what I'm doing here with my guys and stuff. And they said I should change the name of the dojo and all this stuff. And I'm just saying, you know what? I don't ever want to do business with you guys again. I'm so insulted by that.
So you disassociated with them then, or
Yeah,
were you planning on disassociating and just doing your own thing?
I mean, we pretty much do our own thing already. Even when it was my master, he always kind of did his own thing. He was a defensive tactics instructor. He learned in the military police in starting in 1957. Can I show you a picture of my master?
Of course.
Yeah. Let me see. Let's see this. We got a little newspaper. Can you? It's
Get
coming. I don't know. Okay.
I got this little screen, and my eyes are old. Oh, there he goes. I see him.
Yeah, that's my master there. That's with Ron and Sash. Shout out to Sash. He's a MMA badass. He was my first protege. And this is the Aikido Journal with Isoyama on the cover.
Oh, he's on the front. Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a really cool article, and there's a picture of my master in here with him. So here they are. This is the military police joint, the Allied forces there, 1957. My master is the big guy here, Paulson. And there's some Japanese guys there in the back. They were from Shotokan Karate, because
Oh wow.
Isoyama at that time he was also a Sandan in Shotokan and I think a Yondan in Aikido. And this guy in the middle, that's Isoyama. This was his military police club, and this is them as well. My master's not in this picture in general. This is probably like early 1960s, and
And this is the journal, the Aikido
yeah,
journal.
this is the journal. This is Isoyama. Saito's in the middle there holding the baby. He's pretty famous in Aikido.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Isoyama's that next to the baby there. This is at the Iwama shrine, and some of our guys ended up going there to train with them and stuff like that. This is our old dojo on the main avenue there. That's my leg.
Nice. Immortalized.
Anyway, I always like to say I got a foot in the door because there's like a door in the back. But my master, they focused a lot on like practical techniques.
Yeah.
It's military police. They weren't doing like the whole classic spectrum of Aikido. It was a lot of pinning techniques, big powerful throwing techniques, being very sharp with the temi because the Shotokan background.
Yeah.
That's one thing about our school. Like we actually had the intensity. We had the intensity aspect for dealing with striking techniques, stuff like that. Because a lot of people in Aikido, they always going back to the early days, to like early 2000s, like the internet forums. Oh, we practice some proper striking techniques, and then it got exposed that none of them are. But you can watch Isayama and you'll see that actually the intensity of striking technique and the veracity, it's there. So we always worked on that type of stuff. But my master was the greatest guy. I was coaching. We had this. It was another school. It's called USA Martial Arts under the direction of David Dunn. Really cool guy. He's still teaching in Cannon Country. He's a jiu-jitsu man. And Chuck Norris's Junkuk Do Tong Sudo under David Dunn and Steve Cardenas, the Power Ranger. Okay, and so that was the school, and I was coaching there, and my Aikido master was teaching there 2 nights a week, and I was teaching the grappling and Taekwondo. Anyway, my master, he was teaching there 2 nights a week, and my boss, the Power Ranger, told me, "Oh, don't take those Aikido classes. Don't you dare." So okay, the guy was paying me $100 a week. I had to do what he says. Okay. And then when my master bought the business, he approached me. He said, "You're already doing a great job here with these guys. Will you please stay and help me? We'll keep that program going, and I'll teach you Aikido." And we shook hands, and that was it. We never signed no paperwork, no nothing. We just shook hands and got to work. I started training 4 classes a day. I really hated Aikido. Couldn't stand it. I didn't understand about the Hanari, the outside distance thing. That didn't make sense to me at all. And I wonder if I have the book here. Or did I loan it out? There was a book by Shioda Sensei, and he from the Yoshinkan, and he showed a wrist twist, wrist twist, but it was off of a collar grab, and he ducked under and then wrist twist while it was on the body. And my master taught me that. He goes, "I don't even like this one," he says, "but you might like it or whatever," because he was really good at this, like his ability to extend and be powerful. My master was so good at that, so skilled at dealing with strikes and the distance thing. But he taught me this one, and it clicked. And I remember I moved him. My master shot up and said, "Whoa, there it is!" And then something clicked. I'm like 5 months into this art, and I'm training 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, and I don't understand it all. I hate it. I hate this shit. I just like the people I was with, and I loved my master and stuff like that.
So when did you shift in your thinking, or how did you change?
it was that technique. It was the wrist twist, what we call Sankyo. It was the wrist twist from using your body, because I got to use my body with it. And I said, oh, you get to use your body with it. Kind of like an arm bar or something like that you would do like in BJJ. And it just, that clicked for me. And I go, oh, they do have something here. And so I started hitting that technique a lot. And then from there, I started getting a little confidence and stuff like that. I go, okay, cool. This is going to work. I'll figure it out. You know? So anyway, we've come up on an hour here, Mr. Al. So we'll probably wrap it up, right? But do you want to promote your school and maybe some friends or teachers that you like working with?
Well, if you can always visit the subreddit for questions. I try to do my best to answer any questions that come there. So that's reddit.com/r/Tomiki. If you're in the Lower Westchester area, look at your WCC, Westchester Community College School of Continuing Education catalog. You'll find an Aikido course listed there, and you'll hopefully meet me if you go. And in general, if you're doing BJJ or Judo or Sambo, and you're a kind of a martial nerd, and like most of us, a lot of us, and you want to finish your Jiu-Jitsu journey, there's a lot more to learn. And we need you. You need it. I do believe that, but we need you too, and that'd be great. And we need that intensity, and you'll be happy you did. That's it.
What did Jigoro Kano say? Mutual benefit?
I know maximum effort, maximum effect, minimal effort. What was the other one? Mutual benefit.
My friend George Rego Sensei out of Florida. If I can't get this right, he's gonna beat me up. It's Jita Kyoe. Okay, he's really into that one. Shout out to all my online friends, because I've been able to meet some great people over this time. So love all you guys.
Yeah. And you too, like you, again, all those folks that are working on that reunification. I have zero interest in having an online life in any way. I'm only here because I want to do something. I want to do what I can to
New York
this.
Yeah.
But you guys, you're the next generation. You're doing great. Just keep running with it.
Cool. Yeah. Cool, brother. All right, let's wrap it up. I'll talk to you later. I think if I just hit X, we're all good. It's just going to end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.